We are a generation caught in the trap of the immediate. We track our lives by seconds, minutes, and notifications. We expect our careers to launch overnight. We expect our relationships to be perfect instantly. We want the prize, without the process. We look at people who have achieved greatness and say, they got lucky, or it happened so fast for them. But we are blind to the thousands of silent hours spent in the dark. In a small European town tucked away in the mountains, there lived a legendary artisan named Master Renard. He was known as the greatest clockmaker in the world. People traveled across continents just to buy a single pocket watch from his shop. But there was a catch. Renard never kept a schedule. He never promised a delivery date. One day, a wealthy merchant's son named Julian arrived at the shop. Julian was ambitious, arrogant, and hurried. He placed a heavy velvet bag full of gold coins on the counter. "Master Renard," Julian said, "I want you to build me the finest grandfather clock in existence. I want it to be a masterpiece that will make my rivals envious. I will pay you double your price, but it must be finished in 3 months." Renard, an old man with silver hair and grease-stained hands, looked at the gold, then looked at Julian. He pushed the bag back across the counter. "A masterpiece cannot be negotiated with time," Renard said softly. "If you want a clock in 3 months, go to the factory down the street. If you want a masterpiece, you must leave the gold, leave your impatience, and work as my apprentice until it is done." Driven by vanity, Julian accepted the challenge. He thought he could outwork time. He thought his sheer willpower would force the clock into existence. On his first day, Renard handed him a rough piece of solid brass and a small hand file. "Shape this into the central wheel," Renard instructed. "It must be perfectly circular, down to a fraction of a millimeter. Do not rush." Julian smiled. He went to work like a man possessed. He filed furiously for 12 hours straight. By evening, his fingers were bleeding, but the wheel looked perfectly round to his eye. He proudly presented it to the master. Renard didn't even look at Julian. He simply held the gear up to a candle, saw a microscopic imperfection, and dropped it into the scrap bin. "Too fast," Renard said. "You filed with anger, not alignment. Start again tomorrow." Julian was furious, but his pride wouldn't let him quit. A month passed, then 3 months, then 6 months. For half a year, Julian did nothing but file gears, polish springs, and carve tiny wooden casing details. To the outside world, he had accomplished absolutely nothing. His friends back home laughed at him, sending letters asking why he was wasting his youth sweeping floors and filing brass for an old lunatic. Julian began to doubt himself. Every night, he stared at his scarred hands and wondered, "Is this worth it? Am I just wasting my life?" By the end of the first year, a strange transformation began to happen within Julian. The frantic energy in his chest started to quiet down. He stopped checking the calendar. He stopped counting the days. He began to notice things he had never seen before. He noticed how the sound of a metal file changed when the cut was perfect. He noticed how a drop of oil settled differently, depending on the room's temperature. He was no longer working to finish. He was working to honor the metal in front of him. Master Renard watched Julien from the shadows of the shop. A subtle, proud smile on his face. One evening, during the 18th month, Julien was assembling the escapement mechanism, the literal beating heart of the clock. It required placing a microscopic diamond pallet onto a steel arm. One slip of the tweezers would ruin a year of foundation work. Julien's breath was steady. His mind was entirely blank. There was no past, no future, no gold, and no rivals. There was only the diamond and the steel. With absolute grace, he placed the stone. It clicked perfectly into place. Renard walked up behind him, placed a heavy hand on Julien's shoulder, and spoke the most profound words Julien had ever heard. You are finally ready to begin building the clock. Up until now, we haven't been shaping the brass, Julien. Time has been shaping you. A broken tool cannot forge a masterpiece. Your impatience was the broken tool. The next 2 years flew by like a beautiful dream. Julien and Renard worked side by side as equals. They built a clock that did not just tell time. It told the seasons, the alignment of the stars, and the phases of the moon. But true patience is always tested at the very finish line. In the 3rd year, as they were installing the massive pendulum, a massive earthquake shook the mountain valley. The workshop groaned. Shelves collapsed. Heavy iron tools came crashing down. When the shaking stopped, the workshop was in ruins. But worst of all, the masterpiece was shattered. 3 years of daily, meticulous, agonizing work was crushed into a heap of splinters and bent brass. Julien fell to his knees. The old familiar monster of despair gripped his throat. He felt a hot tear roll down his cheek. 3 years, gone in 3 seconds. He looked at Master Renard, expecting to see the old man broken and weeping. Instead, Renard was already sweeping the glass off the floor. But the second clock they built was supernatural. When it was unveiled in the capital city, the emperor himself wept at its beauty. The ticking sound was so perfectly balanced, it was said to calm the heart rate of anyone standing near it. It became known across history as the Chronos of Peace. Julien, now a master craftsman, stood at the back of the ballroom. The wealthy merchants and nobles crowded around him, throwing bags of gold at his feet, begging him to make them one quickly. Julien just smiled, shook his head, and declined the easy fortunes. He finally understood. The world looks at your life right now and tells you that you are running out of time. It tells you that if you haven't achieved your dreams by 25 or 30, or 40, you have failed. It forces you to build a cheap, fragile version of your life, just to show the world you did something. But when the storms of life hit, when the economy crashes, when a relationship ends, when health fails, those fast-built lives shatter into dust because they have no foundation. Do not rush your growth. Do not be ashamed of your silent years. If this story spoke to your soul today, leave a comment saying, "I am the craftsman." Subscribe to join our community of intentional minds. Share this with someone who is about to give up. And remember, your masterpiece is currently in production. Until next time, stay patient,